Welcome to a demonstration of RxNT's standalone e-prescribing solution. My name is Max, and I'll be taking you through today's demo. RxNT's e-prescribing solution is cloud-based, meaning you can e-prescribe from any existing computer, laptop, tablet, or even a handheld device. We even offer our own app for both iOS, that's for iPhone and iPad, as well as our own Android app for mobile use. RxNT is also EPCS certified, and that's an acronym you'll hear throughout today's demo for e-prescribing controlled substances. Being cloud-based, you would simply go to RxNT.com. We would provide you with a login and password. So upon clicking customer login, we'll log in. Launching the home screen of RxNT, you'll be presented with what we call the prescription watch page. This will be a running history of the most recent prescriptions that you've e-prescribed from your organization, with the most recent prescription on top. When you e-prescribe, RxNT will divert you back to this home screen. The prescription that was just e-prescribed will highlight in green with a date and a timestamp. If you have staff can be set up as two different levels. Staff members can queue up medications for approval by the physician, or if you allow, you can let staff members send non-controlled medications on their own. If a staff member queued up a medication, they would go through the entire prescription process. That sends it to the physician's pending queue. So when the physician logs in, all they have to do is simply check the box and hit approve. It'll then send the prescription off to the pharmacy. Refills. Refills are now going to come through the RxNT system. This helps reduce phone calls and fax requests from your pharmacies. And they're going to come through this tab, Refills. Very similar to the pending. You can check the box and hit approve, and it's going to send this prescription back to the pharmacy. You could also void out a refill request. If you don't want to authorize it, I could check the void icon. For convenience, we provide you a quick pick list. You also have the capability to type in any reason why you don't want to refill this prescription. Anything voided will get totaled under the voided tab for back office use. We're going to go ahead into a patient and begin the prescription process. We're in our demo patient, Rita Henderson, today. This is a controlled environment for HIPAA. We'll have the basic information about our demo patient in the top left corner. You'll then notice a navigation pane down the left-hand side. We're going to highlight these 4 tabs in the navigation pane before we e-prescribe. We're going to start with problems. You can update the patient's problem list. You can search by ICD-10, ICD-9, or a descriptive term. You can also update the patient's allergies. We have 2 examples here, something very basic such as house dust. There's also a Notes tab. The Notes tab is a way to communicate with your other staff members. Perhaps a physician added this note back in 2016, the patient requests refills early. So any notes that can be shared between your organization. The last tab, Medications. The Medications tab is where we will e-prescribe from. At the top, we have the Write Rx box, and we can begin e-prescribing for any medication on the market. We'll also let you save your own favorite drugs tab. That way, you can pick and choose from a list to prescribe from versus constantly performing a search. To the right of that tab, RxNT is going to populate the patient's PBM and formulary. We're going to populate the PBM and formulary from SureScripts. SureScripts is the hub that connects you to all the pharmacies you'd like to e-prescribe to. They're cross-referencing the patient's demographic information across various payers. Now, the benefit to populating the PBM and formulary, we're going to populate what we call the History tab. This is going to show you a list of every prescription that's been prescribed to this patient within the past 2 years. This is showing prescriptions from any physician in the country. And it's even showing fill data. So that means as long as the pharmacy filled it, it will show here. Cash, they could have paid with their insurance. The second benefit to populating the PBM and formulary is when we go to e-prescribe, which we'll do in just a moment, we're always going to let you know if the medication will or will not be covered on the patient's insurance. But before we do that, the last thing I want to highlight is the Current tab. And this is a list of meds the patient is currently taking. It's important to keep the Current Medications tab up to date, as well as the Problems tab we highlighted and the Allergies tab. We check for interactions at the point of prescribing. So we'll check for drug to drug to problem, and drug to allergy interactions. Let's go ahead and start prescribing a new med. We're going to go ahead and do a controlled substance since we are certified. We can e-prescribe Schedule 2 through 5s throughout the country. And we're going to do a broad search for morphine 10. You don't have to type out the full medication name. Based on my search, it's going to retrieve all the results that match morphine 10. In front of the search results, there's the symbols, the blue bubbles. I will match that symbol with the formulary key above, letting me know if the medication will or will not be covered on the patient's insurance. The idea is to catch this on the front end to prevent any callbacks from the practice. We're going to go ahead and continue with the oral solution. That's going to bring me to the drug information screen. To the right, the coverage, and below that, any alternatives that I might want to choose instead. The bottom left, you'll see the term SIGs. SIGs is another word for custom dosing instructions. As a provider, physician, maybe from the organizational level, you're able to create your own custom SIGs per medication. That way you're not having to type out the dosage and the quantity each time you prescribe. You're given a recommendation by the FDA, and then you can also create a new SIG from scratch. Essentially, this is a blank slate. We're going to go ahead and continue with a recommendation. It's going to bring me to the drug information screen. I could edit the dosage here. I need to enter the quantity. I could use generic or not. I could also save this SIG from here for future use. And I can use this custom SIG across other patients. Now the refills is blocked off because it's a C2. If it was a non-controlled, you could add any refills. The pharmacist notes box is a free text. So I could type in something along the lines of fill as directed. I could also type in something specific to that pharmacist. I could add a diagnosis to the bottle. And then finally, there's this schedule tab. This would allow you to set up a schedule, an automated process to prescribe medications. So you could set up a schedule, maybe for this to run every 30 days starting today. Now, if this was a non-controlled medication, you could simply have it send off to the pharmacy every 30 days. Since this is a controlled substance, my only capability would be for it to show up in my pending queue every 30 days. I'm going to click cancel and go back. Before we move on to the next page, RxNT offers EPA, which is electronic prior authorization. So once you've filled out this medication to its entirety, I could click EPA to find out if it will or will not be covered. We're going to continue. The final selection is the pharmacy search page. Each user, so each provider, each nurse, can save their own prescriber favorite pharmacies. And that is your own list. RxNT is also going to remember the most recent 15 pharmacies you've sent that patient's prescription to. Those are going to show up under the Patient Favorite Pharmacies tab. The last option is to perform a search. I can use any of these search parameters at the top. I could even do a partial search, just like I demonstrated with the medication. I will do the first few characters, and we're going to pull local pharmacies here. Now, we do have every pharmacy within the continental U.S. listed in RxNT. What's important is to look at the very last column. If you're trying to e-prescribe a controlled substance, not only does RxNT have to be certified, but so does the pharmacies. So if the last tab has a checkbox with EPCS, that means that pharmacy will accept your controlled substance. If you're sending a regular medication, well then in that case you can e-prescribe to every pharmacy on this list. We're going to choose a demo pharmacy for today. We're going to present you with a final preview of what the prescription is going to look like. All the physician's information in the top left, and then the physician's digital signature as well. The prescription process that we just went through is the same, whether I'm a nurse or a physician. The difference is this final preview page. If I'm a nurse and my only capability is to queue it for the physician, the only tab visible to the nurse would be Save as Pending. However, I am logged in as a physician or a provider, so we can show you what the final send-off is going to look like. If it's a regular medication, when you click Send, you're done. However, for a controlled substance, the DEA requires what they call a two-factor authentication. The physician or provider is first required to re-enter the same password they used to get into the RxNT system. Then they're required to enter what we call an OTP password, a one-time password. This one-time password is going to come from the token. Each provider or physician can elect a small key fob, which is a standalone independent device. It's the size of a Tootsie Roll, and it generates a random number. Or you can choose a third-party app. Now, I did mention in my opening comments that RxNT offers its own e-prescribing app. This is a third-party app through our token supplier, SafeNet. Also, if you plan to e-prescribe from your mobile device, the DEA will expect you to retrieve your passcode from a separate device. So whether you choose the key fob or the app, you would retrieve that passcode, that one-time passcode, enter it in for your controlled substance to be sent off. When I click Sign, it'll then be transmitted electronically. The final item that I'd like to mention is you can print copies of these prescriptions. You could print it on Rx paper, or you can print it to plain paper. You could even simply print a copy for the patient's records as well. I want to thank you for your time. That concludes today's e-prescribing demo. If you would like to learn more, contact RxNT Sales at 1-800-943-7968, option 3. Or feel free to email us at sales@rxnt.com. Thank you again for your time.